All right, we got all the mics off here. Are you hearing an echo?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, John, you messing with me, man. I like it. Okay. So up at the village at Wolf Creek, they've asked to amend their housing types and look at increasing the height of the homes in that area. So Steve, you want to go ahead and explain what they're wanting to do there?
Yeah. Back in 2005, technically, I think 2001, when this PRUD was approved, there were really specific house types that were approved for each lot. It's been a little bit of a burden to track that. Whenever someone calls in, they want to know what they can build. We have to go into the files and show them, hey, this is the specific floor plan. There's a company called Blue Rock Construction or Blue Rock Builders, I believe, who bought a bunch of these lots and wanted to amend the house types. And rather than have specific floor plans, they wanted to just be allowed to build within the setback. And they also wanted to amend the way the buildings look so that there's not, one specific building type for each specific lot. There would be a little bit of a variation. And so we as staff felt that that was okay to do, that with the proposed architecture, that there is still some standard that fits in well with the other homes that have been built in this area. And then the other part of this amendment is to ask for an overall short-term rental approval under the current FR3 zoning. It allows short-term rentals as a conditional use. And so they're tagging that request on here as well, asking that the Planning Commission would allow them to have short-term rentals on these specific units.
Steve, let me just ask, I know we've had other FR3 projects come back in and get short-term rental approval like Moose Hall and other places. So that's probably foregone conclusion. But in terms of architecture, are they saying they want to be able to do anything as long as it's the setbacks, or is there some kind of guidelines? Because one of the problems with that area is you have the original concept was log homes. Then you have this another concept of Thomas Kincaid looking homes. And then you have a third concept of modern going in with the multifamily. So is what they're proposing somewhere in the middle of all that or something?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So in one of these exhibits in the staff report, they've actually, I'll have to zoom in a little bit, I guess. They've outlined what those buildings will look like and the types of materials that they'll have. There will be generally, I guess, three options that they can choose from. One of them being this mountain rustic, if you can see my screen here. And then another being what they call mountain modern. And then a final, which would be the mountain craftsman. So three different types. And it's more of, it's what I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. It is obviously we're not looking at the specific floor plan like we were under the previous, but this is generally what the three options will look like. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah, it's sure going to be jumbled up though.
Steve, I have some printout of what they have a whole bunch of them. There must be 10, 15 different kinds that they have presented.
So keep in mind that the first few pages are what was previously approved. So if you'll notice, Commissioner Howell, on the exhibit, I can walk you through some of them, but previously from 2005 and 2001, I've also included some of those as an exhibit to show you what we were asking for. So you can see back in 2001, we were asking for this specific floor plan when we don't actually think we need to get that specific, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but if you change half those houses to suddenly mountain modern, it's just going to be quite a jumble, don't you think?
And that's certainly something the Planning Commission can consider as you look at these. We feel that the variation won't be too much of a jumble, but yeah, certainly as a Planning Commission, that's something that you can look at.
You can also look at the height on this too, if you feel that the homes that 42 feet is a little too tall in that area. Steve looked at the existing homes and none of them were over the 35 feet height limit. So you can also look at that. And if you don't feel that these architecture styles are compatible with what was approved, you know, that's within your purview to deny that. One thing that you are a little limited on is with the short-term rentals, where that's allowed in that zone. It's a little more difficult to just go in and deny that. You just have to place reasonable conditions upon that use to make them compatible with the uses in that area. So, you know, in this instance, you know, a lot of it, if we do have short-term rentals up there, it's going to be a code enforcement issue, especially with parking up in that area, because we are limited on parking already up in that area.
Hey, Rick, another
this
question I
is
have for
Ron.
you.
If it's already zoned,
Sorry, go ahead.
if it's, I think I just heard you say it's already zoned for short-term rentals, and if that's the case, why do they have to ask for a permit?
As part of the PRUD, it falls under a conditional use permit in that zone, and so that's why they have to ask for it.
And it
Some-
also, it specifically lists nightly rentals as a conditional use in the FR3 zone.
Okay.
Which is why the other two are coming before you as well on the agenda. And they're falling under conditional use permits, and the Planning Commission sets those conditions. But you can't actually deny a conditional use permit unless you can't address life safety issues. You're pretty much responsible as a Planning Commission to look at what reasonable conditions there are and approve it based upon that.
Hey, Steve, I see in this the color white on some of the examples, and I'm wondering, where did the approvals for white siding come in on even the multifamily that's up the street? Like, that's the last thing that goes in a mountain community is white siding. But I see it on the condos over there. Was that on the approval? Did they ask for something other than earth tones?
Yeah, so for a single family, white can be a color for a single family unit.
What about the white on the multifamily over there?
Multifamily white can be an accent color, and that was approved as an
It
accent
was.
with other units, yeah.
Oh, yeah, boy. Okay.
Steve, John Howell. The material I have shows 14 different types of homes that they want to put in there. What is that, pick and choose, or are those in the ordinance? I mean, to be approved to, or what?
So Commissioner Howell, if you look at the exhibit of those, there aren't 14 homes they're proposing. I included several of the previously approved homes to show you what was being proposed to change. So there are, under the current proposal, there are 3 house types that you can choose from, and it would be mountain rustic, mountain modern, or mountain craftsman. But the other ones you're seeing, those were what were previously approved for these lots. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But these other houses that we approved before for these lots, those are nice looking houses. Better than this modern thing here, but
and that's definitely something you can consider as a planning commission. As you look at the conditional use chapter, you're looking at how well these buildings tie into the surrounding neighborhoods. If you don't feel like they do fit in well, you can ask for, change
I think they look great, actually. I mean, they're all different too, and, to give them, the neighborhood, where every house doesn't look the same, if you have only a couple to pick from, I think if you let them pick from all of them, I think.
And then to provide a little bit of clarification, there was some talk of building height. In the narrative that the applicant originally proposed, they wanted to have 45 feet. As staff, we're actually recommending that you just approve at 40 feet if you're going to allow a height. The reason for that is because in areas like cluster subdivisions, it does allow for up to 40 feet, but we felt that 45 was a little too tall. The applicant, I've talked to them about it, and they are comfortable if it's limited to 40. But again, that's entirely up to you as a commission.
Isn't
think
the
that's-
surrounding neighborhood all 35 and under?
Yeah, that's, I thought it was 35.
So it is, but as a PRUD, they can go taller. Those standards can be relaxed if you choose to allow that.
Steve, can I ask a follow-up to Chair Lewis's question on the colors? So what are we dealing with now when we look at Exhibit B? Are we able to prescribe colors, or are we not able to prescribe colors? I agree with you go to Mountain Modern, you have something that does not.
Yeah, so you can look at colors. This is a PRUD where they're proposing to have some standards relaxed as far as the area of the lots go. And so yes, you can look at things like color if you would like to not allow white. I believe it's in your purview to restrict white as a color.
On that Mountain
But your
Modern,
current
Sorry, what was that?
that would be on any of them, right?
Any of the proposed, any unit that is being proposed before you under this application, yes.
Do we have white currently as an approved palette?
No. If I look through some of these units, the original approvals, I can show you a few of them. I don't believe any of them have just outright, white as a permitted color.
Okay. I looked through them as well, and I didn't see white. That's why I was trying to understand it. They all seem to have an earth tone.
I didn't either.
Brick
John.
or, something.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. That helps me. I just wasn't sure I understood the answer to Chair Lewis's question.
I have a question on this Mountain Modern. Is that two different styles there? One's white and one's earth tones on the exhibit?
Yes. Yeah. We would like to, I guess ideally, the color we would like to not regulate. But if the commission would like to specifically keep it as, kind of the wood look, and then having no white, that's certain, you can do that. But yes, Commissioner Burton, under this proposal, they would be proposing these two colors.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'll say it in our meeting, but I really feel strongly about this because I live in the area, but I think white just really jumps out at you. I'm really sad that the accent color on the condos turned out to be white because it's a lot of white. And there's nothing about mountain or rural or earth tone or any of it that makes sense with white. And also there's not a neighborhood around here with houses higher than 35. So to suddenly have this one, just because you could give an exception, I really don't think that is appropriate. And I like Mountain Modern, but if it's all Mountain Modern, that's one thing. If it's jumbly, I think it looks terrible. So I would really say the other two look like the houses that are there and it would blend in. But if you suddenly jump to Mountain Modern in the middle of it, you'll have a third looking thing that's nowhere near the log cabin that's already there. I just think you're going to blow the place up with look if you if you introduce a third look and a color and a height. So that's just my opinion.
Well, those mountain moderns are going to jump out like anything with those other display of houses. The 14 there that they've had approval before are pretty nice looking houses, and they're not all the same.
So maybe one thing I'd add is, yeah, I think that's good to bring up in the meeting, and then maybe as part of something that's not in my staff report is maybe have it just restricted to, you know, earth tone colors. That way, you know, you're not getting the just outright white, but it also doesn't restrict it to only having, you know, like a wood siding.
Yeah, you know, just not, because there's beige too, but yeah, just stark white looks great in Farmington. It doesn't look good in our valley. But that's just a judgment call.
It's always in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
There ought to be probably some deference given to the guys that are be building and marketing these, because it's their stuff.
Yeah.
Lewis, can I
I
ask
even-
a question? This is
Yeah.
Cortland. Steve and Rick, I'm just curious as to the legal basis in our ordinance for restricting colors in a situation like this with these residences.
I can look it up, and then I don't know if you want me to bring it up during the meeting, but I'm certainly happy to look it up real quick.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on solid footing there, because I've been looking through the CUP chapter, and it isn't really specific on that.
Probably be in the PRUD chapter.
PRUD, okay. I just want to make sure we're on solid ground there.
So, yeah.
And we recommend earth tone colors.
Well, if Cortland's okay with it, and I guess we'll have to figure this out, you know, during the meeting, but I
mean,
believe
if-
we can restrict
If
it.
we as a planning commission have any say over a rural community, then this is where it is. If not, then hey, go build anything you want. Doesn't matter. Or we have no jurisdiction. So why are we even here?
So Cortland, there's a section of the PRUD ordinance. It's 108-5-4 subsection B. And it says, once the overall development plan showing details of buildings, structures, and uses has been approved by the county commission after recommendation from the planning commission, it talks about no changes shall be made unless it comes back to the approval from the planning commission. So when we're talking about details of buildings, I think color, specifically in a PRUD, could fall under that.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
As I'm looking at it, I kind of agree with that it allows that. You could interpret it to be part of the building.
And then I would also think maybe part of that would be if maybe the developers is fine doing that, just saying, yeah, let's restrict the color. Maybe they would volunteer to do that.
And that would be absolutely fine.
Okay. Rick, you want to hit another topic real quick before we start?
Let's jump down to the subdivision. It's a 4-lot subdivision. Felix, you want to just touch on that real quickly?
Yeah, sure. And so this is in the Ogden Valley, and what they'd be doing is splitting up a 21-acre parcel and creating 4 lots. And I think what I plan to do during the meeting is bring up some discussion around road dedication and also block lengths, because planning division saw a good opportunity for this particular property to get some area for future roadway for connectivity. And so I'll make sure to bring that up during my presentation.
Sounds good.
And then the other two are just conditional use permits for short-term rentals. So you can review each one of those and just looking at placing reasonable conditions upon those. Just so you're aware too, the state law changed and for ADUs, and it allowed a little more flexible building requirements to make it easier for ADUs to be created for folks, so it's not as difficult. And the commission has also asked us to proceed with the short-term rental ordinance that you guys reviewed and the Western Weber Planning Commission reviewed. So we'll be forwarding some recommendation onto the county commission in the next few weeks.
Felix, is the second approval for a short-term rental inside the same subdivision, the condos there?
I'm not sure on the condos. I believe that one's Steve's.
Actually, those ones are mine.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay,
They're both located in the Villages development.
okay. So they're the same thing really, right?
The request frankly is pretty identical.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
Oh, quick question on the height in these building styles. Is that 45 feet, 40 feet restricted just to this third example here, the Mountain Craftsman? Is that where that would apply?
I'm sorry, I was on the phone talking to staff. What was the question there?
Oh, I'm just looking at Mountain Craftsman. Is that where that looks like a real tall place, 3 stories. Is that where the 45 feet would apply?
I believe that is the taller version. The other ones look like they're within probably the 35 foot, but the Mountain Modern looks like it picks up the 40, 45 area.
And where do you take a measurement from to see how high a building is?
So we would measure it. It'd be an average building height. So you'd go from the tallest point of the roof, and you'd measure to the adjacent grade, and you'd do that on all sides of the building to get an average height.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you guys ready to start? All right, let's go. So welcome everybody to the Ogden Valley Planning Commission, March 23rd, 2021. I'll go ahead and lead a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's see, I'd like to welcome all the commissioners. First of all, is Shanna Francis here? I see.
Salt Lake County.
Yeah, there she is. Okay. So welcome Commissioner Burton, Commissioner Howell, Commissioner Lackey, myself, Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Hoag, Commissioner Waldrop, and Commissioner Francis. Okay, so I'm up for having a vote to approve the minutes from February 23rd. No, I'm sorry, from February 23rd, 2021. Do I have a motion for that?
This is Commissioner Hoag. I'd move that we approve the minutes from February 23rd.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second that. This is Shanna.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go ahead and go into our administrative items and public hearing sections. So first up, we're going to hear 2.1 CUP 2021-6, request for approval of a conditional use permit amendment to amend the house types for single family lots within the village at Wolf Creek Development. Steve, I guess you'll be the presenter on this.
Yes, yeah. Hi, commissioners. I have, as you've probably seen in your staff report, I've prepared a few exhibits that that show that there are specific house types that were approved for each lot within the village at Wolf Creek subdivision. This amendment is only for the single family dwelling lots. It is not for the townhome lots that are under construction right now. So I'll share my screen here real quick with you so that you can see the specific house types. The applicant has on these specific lots, let me cite the specific lots here for the record. So as shown in the staff report, we've got lots 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15 through 18, 23, 25, 26, 32, 33, 34, and 35. There have been also other lots added as this application was submitted, lots 24 and 29. So back in 2000 and 2005, there were several house types considered. I'll walk you through kind of what the original approvals were for these lots, so you can kind of see. It shows a specific floor plan as well as an elevation for each lot. Here it showed kind of how it would fit on a corner lot, for example, with the 4-foot setback. So several of these houses, several floor plans, the developer has recently come in and asked to change these so that we don't have to specifically look at a floor plan. We as staff don't feel like we need to look at a floor plan. It is actually could be kind of a burden to make sure they're following a floor plan exactly. I'll walk you through a couple of these other approved building types. What you have now is the proposal. The applicants provided a narrative here in your staff report that you can see. They have asked for a little bit different elevation of the building. I'll show you kind of what those look like. So they've proposed really three types. You've got mountain rustic, mountain modern, and then the mountain craftsman. As part of their request, they have asked to go up to 45 feet in building height. Staff has actually recommended that you don't go above 40, that it be restricted to 40. And the reason for that is because with closer density houses, like it maybe like a cluster subdivision, you can in certain cases go up to 40 feet in height. The other request here is to allow short-term rentals on these specific units in this subdivision. That is listed as a conditional use in the FR3 zone, and so the applicant would like to have an overall conditional use approval for short-term rentals on these units. As staff, we're recommending approval of this based on the findings and conditions that are outlined in the staff report. One thing I would like to point out that for some additional clarification is in the staff report, we haven't listed specifically any colors that could be required. We would as staff like to restrict that to muted like earth tone colors to better fit in with the surrounding area. So I believe the applicant is on the line. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Steve at this point? Okay, is the applicant here and would they like to speak?
Could I ask a question?
Well,
If-
hey, one sec, Chris. So would the applicant like to speak at all?
Maybe they are not.
Maybe not.
aligned with that.
Okay, well, let's go back to the commissioners. So commissioners, comments, questions?
This is Chris. I just had a question. You know, I noticed on the I think it's figure 23 or sheet 23 of the report, where the layout of the lots. I noticed that all the lots have the various original names, like the teacher two, or the, you know, different types of housing that were assigned. Was that the intent of the original approval, to require those specific styles at those lots?
I believe so.
Yes, yeah, they were very detailed in that original. You can see out here from 2005. Yeah, Commissioner Hoag, that was the intent. I don't know if it was the developer who proposed it at the time or the planning commission who asked for it, but very specific on the floor plan, and even, yeah, which lot could have which building type. So under this proposal, it would just be, you know, really any of these three options could go in any of these lots.
Gotcha. Okay. How many have been built?
I don't actually know. I could quickly show just a Google image of the development real quick here and show you. There's a handful that have been built.
So less than half?
Yeah, it's probably 6 or 7 houses.
Okay.
Well, Steve, I do have a couple comments, but maybe I'll wait till, does anybody else have any more questions for Steve?
Yeah, Steve, this Commissioner Burton, I have one for you. On the dwelling quality and exterior materials, it says you can use fiber cement siding, natural wood siding, etc. The next sentence says, should a dwelling's front exterior not be constructed of 100% fiber cement siding? Do they intend to restrict it to that? Only fiber cement can be on the front, or you have to have stone or brick? Or would wood siding be okay on the front? Seems overly restrictive, but if he's making the application, I guess that's what he wants.
I understand them to say that you could do 100% fiber cement siding, but if you don't, Aaron, let me take a look at that real quick as I share my screen to show you the what's been built out in this area. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think this is 10 units. Looks like they've been built out.
Okay.
And I'll go back to the narrative here. Answer Commissioner Burton's question. Should a dwelling's front exterior not be constructed of 100% fiber cement siding, the dwelling's front exterior shall have 30% stone or brick minimum. Okay, and I apologize, Commissioner Burton. What was your question on that?
Okay, yes. In some buildings I've built, they have a thing called hardy board, which I assume is 100% fiber cement siding. And it looks like plank, boards. But they also have LP siding, which looks very similar. And it says here you can use wood siding, natural wood siding products, which would probably be the LP. So did they intend to say, if you're going to have this things that look alike, you can only use cement on the front? If you use wood, you have to include brick and stone. I just wonder if that's overly restrictive. Did he write this, or did staff write this?
So staff did not write this. This was all just submitted by the owner. And I apologize. I don't know what they specifically mean by that. I wish they were on the line to verify.
Okay, one more question. So we're considering here also nightly rentals at the same time. And it looks like it specifies 2 parking spaces. Is staff considered that enough for a nightly rental?
Yeah, so for a nightly rental for a single family dwelling, staff would require a minimum of 2 parking spaces.
Okay. And in this situation, is 2 going to be enough to keep people off the street if they're
So
rented out to groups of people?
So I feel that it will, but that's definitely something that the planning commission could consider, and maybe you'd want more.
With all those, we talked months ago about if there were going to be standards for nightly rentals, you would have so many parking spaces per bedroom or bed or something. Were those recommendations back then in excess of the 2 per dwelling?
No, so those recommendations are for an ordinance that has yet to be adopted. What we're operating under with this specific proposal is the current ordinances that don't actually.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to get to the objective. How many parking spaces do you need for nightly rentals?
Right. Yeah, and I guess you as a commission could determine that in this specific case, where it is a single family dwelling, two are required for a single family dwelling. I believe with the driveway, you'd have at least you'd have enough for 3, possibly 4 with a 2-car garage.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lewis or Chair Lewis, can I make a comment?
Yep.
To me, well, the current ordinance does say 2, and Steve I'm sorry, I'm a little muffled on this computer. Did you say the proposed changes are more than 2?
No, the proposed change is just to leave the development how it is. And so each house, if it were to be rented out for short-term rentals, it would just have, the existing parking facilities. So a driveway and a garage.
My question is, maybe on a regular street where there's room on a street to also park. But the problem is in this neighborhood, the streets are so excessively narrow. When you do get people parking on the street, it's a big problem. You can't have 2 lanes of traffic going on the road. So my concern is how do you mitigate that if they can't? I mean, could they turn in a couple of their lots for some parking, like a parking lot area? I don't know. It just seems, I don't know how they could mitigate.
So we have,
the street parking. The street parking is the big issue in this neighborhood.
and these are all private streets. So I don't know that we could plan for a lot of traffic going through here, at least not a lot of public traffic. And we'd also probably need to understand what, if parking is an issue, fully understand what that issue is. And I don't know if we've got pictures from, previous summers. I don't believe there are any short-term rentals going on currently in these short-term units. But I'm not aware of a specific hazard.
I am aware of at least one short-term rental, at least one that's going on at this time.
Hey, just so you guys know, we're going to open it up for public comment when we're done with the commissioners. All right, well, I just wanted to say a couple things about this particular one. So, when Dave Booth put this together a million years ago, it had a very rustic, albeit crowded, but it was a fairly consistent, rural looking community. So it's changed hands lots of times and slight differences in trajectory. What it's very quickly becoming though is kind of hodgepodge looking, in my opinion. And that's just my personal opinion. And I think if we allow it to go from kind of cottagey houses, which look fine, and log home, which barely kind of fits with it, to now suddenly mountain modern, I think it's just going to jump out at your eyeball, especially if you have white mountain modern houses blending in with this. I don't think it'll blend in. So, and certainly there's no neighborhood around here that has taller than 35 foot. So I would highly suggest you don't go above 35 foot for a house. Otherwise you'll have a log home, 1 story, and a white mountain modern 45 footer next door, which just is going to look horrible. So my recommendation is to approve this, but subject to keeping it to 35 feet tall and under, like the rest of the neighborhoods. Now allowing the other 2 models, which look fine, the mountain rustic and the craftsman would probably fit in with what's there. That won't jump out at you, but not do the mountain modern. And definitely stick away from white and stick to earth tones and mountain rustic to try to keep the overall, rural atmosphere that we've been charged to try to stick to. If you want a white looking kind of look, it's great in other settings, but I just don't think it'll fit here. So that would be my recommendation on that. In terms of short-term rentals, I'm not sure we can restrict it because a lot of the other things in the immediate area in this zoning have been allowed to go. Every example I can think of has been allowed to go to nightly rentals. And I do think the parking is going to be an issue, but that's going to be an HOA issue in my opinion. So that HOA needs to get together and say, okay, we're not allowing any short-term rentals to park on our streets because there's not enough room. But it has to be kind of an HOA driven effort, not a county driven effort since it's private. So that would be my take on it.
Steve, John Howell, are there any other short-term rentals in this particular project up there?
So Commissioner Francis indicated that there's one going on.
Oh, okay, all right.
Steve, one other question, just so I'm clear, the things that this application that deviates from our, I guess what's already been done in this neighborhood and in this area generally are the height and the color/design. Is that correct? Those are the 2 things that are deviations?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I understood what those were.
And I'll actually add to that, Commissioner Waldrop, I don't know if you mentioned this, but yeah, the building footprint is also, it would also be different. With this proposal, the proposal is to just eliminate any requirement of a specific building floor plan.
Okay, commissioners, how about we'll open it up to the public and then we'll come back to commissioners for any further comments. So who's moderating tonight, by the way?
Felix is.
Steve?
Felix will be.
Felix, yeah.
Felix,
Right.
okay. Felix, why don't you go ahead and open it up to do I have to vote to open up the public, Rick?
No, you can open it up to public comment.
Okay.
This isn't a
So,
public hearing.
Let's just open up for public comment. I know there's at least Mr. Bingham would like to have a word. So Felix, why don't you go ahead and moderate that portion?
Sure thing, yeah. So anyone who would like to make some comments, you could go ahead and unmute, and then as soon as you're done speaking, go ahead and mute it back again.
I do have a couple comments. I'm aware of there's at least 2 of the existing homes in that villages that are doing overnight rentals. And there have been situations, I think last summer, one of the homes that was doing overnight rentals was reported to have as many as 15 people and 3 boats parked on the road. And maybe that's not a problem right now because there's a lot of vacant lots there, but it will be in the future. I think parking is an absolute issue with regard to the overnight rentals. Also, if you look, I believe Steve said that there may be additional parking beyond the 2 parking spaces in the garage. I don't think those driveways are deep enough to allow parking in the driveway in front of the garage. A lot of those garages are right on or very close to the road and would not allow additional parking for that. I don't know if you can take a look at those plans that are proposed to see what the setback from the garage for the driveway is, but I think a lot of those are very close and would probably not allow for additional parking beyond the 2 spaces per unit. And for that reason, I think that should be definitely a consideration for approving the conditional use permits for the STRs in this subdivision, because I think that they may be unable to provide for enough additional parking for the STR's potential there. And also with regard to the STRs, I think the people that are doing the overnight rentals in that area right now, I would doubt that they're even aware that they need to have a business license or whatever is required to have an STR in their home. They're probably just doing it, I guess, what may be considered illegally under the current law, because if they don't have a business license, then they can't have shown that they have a conditional use permit to have a legal STR. I think that's a problem in a lot of these developments is the owners are renting them out without any awareness that they may be doing it illegally because they don't meet the county requirements to have overnight rentals. That's a couple of my comments that I have right now. I may have a couple more if you want to talk about STRs, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bingham.
you. Hey, thank you. And again, anyone else who wants to have a chat is welcome to. Just make sure it's unique, and let's try to keep it to 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Can we get Mr. Bingham's name on the record, full name, please?
It's John Bingham, and I live at 3483 Willowbrook Lane, which is directly adjacent to the village's development.
Great. Okay, so we have a hand raised from Miranda Menzies. Go ahead, Miranda.
My name's Miranda Menzies. My name is spelled Menzies. I'd request that it be corrected in the previous minutes. If I live at 3807 North Elkridge Trail, and my concern is twofold, to do with the appearance of this development, which is essentially the front gateway to the Wolf Creek Resort, and as such has the potential to affect the property values of all of the owners in the resort. If we have a development that is essentially visually pandemonium, that reflects on the entire resort. I believe that when the planning department changed the way they calculated the height of buildings from the height of peak of roof to the average height, that it no longer is appropriate to have excursions beyond the 35-foot height, because that's the average. And if you've got a 35-foot average, the actual height of the top of the building is more like 40. So I would request that the Planning Commission consider that in the limitation on the height, and also consider safety if we're going to have rentals in there, because if you have multiple buildings in rental and parking on the roads, I don't think it is just an HOA issue. I believe it's a safety issue because of the width of the roads, which are not standard width. They are extremely narrow. And I think you're going to have a situation potentially where emergency vehicles cannot get around the development in order to respond to calls. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Right here.
Okay. Mr. Ray Bertoldi.
Hi, Ray Bertoldi, 4828 East, 3650 North. I live just above this development, just up above John, at the top of the kind of the hill off Willowbrook. And I want to echo what Miranda is saying about the height. I don't think we need to beat the dead horse there, but everything in I live in Patio Springs. So everything in Patio Springs is 35 feet. Going to a 40 to, the requested 45 feet, that's a 4-story building. As I look around, I don't see very many 4-story buildings here, especially, at the gateway there on these small footprints. So I have a concern about building height in that regard. I'm already, looking out I can look right out my window right now at the condos that have been built down there. And there's a number of things that I think are being, telegraphed into this submittal in terms of either building height, comments about the colors. There's white all over these buildings. And when they turn all of these exterior lights that, in my opinion, do not meet the night sky ordinance, the whole place is glowing. So those are concerns of mine. I've also got a concern about the traffic in terms of the parking. Right now, people are just starting to move into those condos, and there's some perpendicular parking on Wolf Lodge Lane that I'm having to pull over to the side of the road just with the normal parking just to let the other car go by. Then again, in regard to nightly rentals, here we are in Patio Springs that doesn't allow it, though now we're looking at something on the perimeter here that is going to influence our neighborhood. And, there's a number of people up here that have been doing it in Patio Springs illegally. One pulled a bus right into my driveway, loaded with people and a couple of cars behind it. Of course, this wasn't the house they were looking for. So I'm just wondering where all this parking and traffic is going to go in a very small development with, as has been said, with smaller lights, or roadways. I think it's a concern that you're going to get a lot of people coming out of Patio Springs, coming down into here. It's bad enough down at the bottom at Creekside, where the stop sign is, that nobody pays attention to. And now we're going to throw in a bunch more traffic into that area. I think it's something waiting to happen there. But I am concerned, not, with in particular the height and the lighting and the colors, because in my opinion, that was missed on the previous development that's out there. And it is, as Miranda was saying, it is the gateway to Wolf Creek. And I think we need to be sensitive to that.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you all for your comments. Back to the commissioners. Any further comments from commissioners?
I do have a quick question. Could you, to mitigate the effects, the parking issues because of the narrow private roads and the lack of driveway space, could you ask that a couple lots be turned into parking areas for boats or whatever to mitigate that huge concern about parking. Would that be something that would be feasible to ask?
Commissioner Francis, I guess if you're asking staff, we would say that no, that is not reasonable to ask. I think there would have to be proven an actual detriment in this area as far as parking goes. You can require that no parking be allowed on the street. And at that point, it becomes an enforcement issue where our code enforcement officer, if a complaint is received, would go out and look at that and potentially, revoke at some point, if it's not corrected, revoke the conditional use approval for short-term rentals. But I would say that no, it's not a reasonable condition to take away some of the building rights on these lots.
Commissioner Francis, one thing that you could look at is you could require that the driveways are long enough to park 2 vehicles in the driveway in front of the 2-car garage. And if they can't, then you could say that they can't have a nightly rental on those lots. That would be reasonable, so that you're basically providing 4 parking stalls off of the area, and then include language in there that they are not allowed to park along the streets to block anything that would impede emergency vehicle access through there, because that's something that the county would be enforcing, making sure that we can get emergency vehicles through the development.
Thank you. That's a really good idea.
And I guess
It's reasonable.
to that point, I would say that the commission, I guess, would need to find that 4 parking spaces are required instead of 2, because there are 2 in a garage that they could use if they had if they didn't have a driveway. If you're I can share my screen really quick to address that as well. If you look at what's been built out, I don't have I guess I do have a scale on here. This unit here might be a little bit close. They might not have enough room for a driveway, but each of these others have enough room to park cars in a driveway.
Hey, Steve, look up higher up. Look at the first at 3567. I think that's where it's getting pretty close in that area.
Right. So if the commission felt that 4 was necessary, then you might want to do what Rick was suggesting and making sure a driveway would be long enough. But again,
do you know what the width on the road is?
I could find out real quick here. I want to say it's 50 feet, but
That was interesting. In that shot you just showed, did I see 2 different vehicles on the grass or on the yard parked on vacant lots next door?
you did. Yeah, I guess we're not exactly sure why they would have been parked there, but yes.
And this is Commissioner Lackey. I do think we could probably squeeze a couple cars in those driveways, but somebody wants to bring a boat or an RV and that all goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be in the street.
Well, the street is not a normal street. That's like a 24-foot street. It's not 50. So you put a boat out there and you have one emergency and the fire trucks aren't going to get in there.
Yep.
Steve, John Howell, are these roads private?
Yes.
They are private roads. Yeah. Yep. And the main road is actually 40
So any police of these roads would be done by the HOAs then?
That's correct.
Unless there's a problem with emergency vehicles.
Right.
So who identifies the problem with emergency vehicles? Is that the fire marshal?
So normally at approval of a subdivision, yes, the fire marshal would look at the lots as well as the width of the streets.
Steve, can you put the aerial back up for a second?
This one's not great. Let me get you a better one.
While he's pulling up that aerial, I just want to make if you do decide to require that they have parking in front of the driveway, I'd like you to, make part of your finding is that the streets are private in that area, and you want to make sure that there's adequate circulation for emergency response vehicles or something that addresses some type of life safety issue that would help protect the public.
Yeah, as I measure it, those are 18-foot wide roadways through that development there.
Yeah, the total right of way is 40 feet.
Yeah, but parkable surface is 18 feet.
Yeah, they normally wouldn't be able to park on this for a short-term rental. They would be required to park on site.
You're never going to be able to.
Yeah,
police-
if you scroll down a little bit, Steve, to the next circle there, and zoom in right by where it says East Willowbrook Circle, you'll see a car parked on the road there, and that'll give a sense of the scale of the road.
Yeah.
Well,
So that would seem to impede any opportunity for emergency vehicle traffic if you have anything on the road there.
yeah, I guess this is my recommendation, and somebody else can make a different one. That's fine. But I just don't think this project was ever conceived as being a nightly rental in the single family residential area, that especially. And you're gonna have a safety issue if nothing else. What we're being asked to do tonight is to change a CUP, and we don't have to. So, in my mind, we shouldn't be allowing them to go over 35 feet. We should be asking them to not do white and to stick to earth tones and kind of stick with the mountain theme of the area. I'm fine with the mountain rustic and the craftsman, and mountain modern's great, but I think it would just look bad to the area if you added that to the mix. And I just don't think short-term rentals work in this particular case because it wasn't designed for it. If you came back and said, yeah, the roads are standard size, it'd be a different thing. But because of the safety, I don't think that works. So
I'll just make a quick comment. The Planning Commission would be acting as a recommending body with this request as well. It would be, yeah, for the proposed changes to the houses as well as the short-term rentals.
okay, so I'm looking for a recommendation for this, but subject to those exclusions. That would be my suggestion, but I'm willing to hear anything. So,
Sure, Lewis, I had a quick question.
uh-huh.
You mentioned the height and the coloring and the short-term rental issue. And there was one other issue, but I didn't catch it. What was that?
The style. So they're asking for 3 different styles, 2 of which I think kind of fit with what's there now, the mountain rustic and the craftsman. But I would not recommend the modern just because it's adding a whole nother element to the mix.
Yeah.
So that'd be my recommendation.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Commissioner, I tend to agree with what you're saying. That the trick for me is I think it would work in the wintertime if you have a family coming to town and they're just going to go skiing and they've got a Suburban they rented. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but it's the boats and the RVs and the emergency vehicles that is my big concern.
Well, I also think it's the unpredictability of knowing whether it's going to be a bus and another car behind it, or if it's just a family with a Suburban. And in a neighborhood that already has generally good sized roads, you might be able to survive that. But in a neighborhood that already has an 18-foot road, then in that situation, you're just going to have a whole big safety problem that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise. So it's a little different in this particular situation because of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question for staff and or Cortland. if we were to recommend no on-street parking, could we also recommend that signage be placed to mark it as such so that there is no on-street parking because of the public safety concerns?
You could require signage along there for safety purposes. That's within your purview. And, you know, if you feel that the roads are not going to be able to handle, and it's going to be a life safety issue, you know, you could look at denying the CUP because it wasn't designed for that, for emergency response vehicles. But if there's reasonable conditions that you feel could be imposed, that's something you could consider as well. But you know, you need to base it upon some type of life safety issue if you're going to deny the CUP for the short-term rentals.
Yeah,
Collin, you can chime in
my
as
comment back to the group is, you know, that the issue isn't that there are nightly rentals here and they're not elsewhere. There, you know, this is a nightly rental zone up there where there are a lot of them. But the, you know, the concern obviously is with safety and getting cars through. So I guess I don't have a problem with nightly rentals as long as nobody parks on the street and doesn't leave anything on the street. And probably the best way to do that is to sign it. And then, you know, I guess, I don't know what enforcement will ever take place on that, but, you know, most people will obey a sign.
I disagree respectfully. I mean, most people won't obey a sign, in a short-term rental sense. You can put them up, but we're going to have people do it and there'll be a safety issue.
Yeah, no, any car on that road, I mean, you see it in that overhead on Google Earth. I mean, you can see one car on the road.
Yeah. I mean, they know they're not supposed to do nightly rentals and they're doing it. They know they're not supposed to park on the lawn. They're doing it. And it's just human nature.
They're on vacation.
Sure.
So question, if this is a circulation problem, if anybody parks on the road, then nobody should be parking on the lawn, STRs or not. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, but that horse has already left the barn.
Yeah. What were the notches in that road there, in that aerial? It looked like there were little parking notches there or something.
Probably guest parking.
There are some areas that have been set apart for, parking. I can share my screen again.
I'm assuming the declarant is long gone, right? It's HOA driven. Steve?
This application? Oh, sorry, as far as enforcing.
No, the HOA is in the hands of the homeowners, not the original declarant, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Commissioner Lackey brought up a good point about boats in the summer, but then I thought of the snowmobile trailers that are constantly going by my house. That's probably going to be a winter problem. Some of them are huge. They're bigger than boats.
Okay, well, do I have a motion?
Make a motion. John Howell. I move to approve petition number CUP 2021-06. Request for a conditional use permit amendment to amend the house types for single-family lots within the village at Wolf Creek Development located at 4880 East Willow Creek Loop, 7.5 acres, Eden, FR3 Forest Residential. The applicant is Conley Hubert. This approval is subject to all conditions and recommendations listed in the staff report and including earth tone colors, prior design housing, limit to 40 feet, which is approved with this type of place, and 4 driveway that will handle 2 cars in front of the garage, and no street parking for safety purposes. This petition and all its let's see, wait a minute, I lost my spot. This recommendation is listed for the staff report, including all the rest. The height and STRs, short-term rentals apply only to the lots in this petition and to all state and county agencies recommend. This motion is based on findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, so for sake of conversation, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's discuss. So what I heard was you're okay with Mountain Modern and you're okay with 40 foot and you're okay with rentals as long as you have parking in the driveway, sounds like, which I don't think those 3 things are good, but.
On how I amend my motion with
Well,
that.
hang on, let's keep discussing it. So again, I don't think Mountain Modern makes sense and I don't think the color white makes sense, but you've already put that in there. I think it's 35 foot like the rest of the neighborhood, not 40. And I think from a safety point of view, because it wasn't originally designed for passing each other with a snowmobile, the likelihood of one showing up or a boat or something is a high likelihood, and we're going to end up with a safety issue. So I just don't see how you can do the nightly rentals, even with 2 spots, because of the width of the road. Other comments?
I want to amend my motion too with a couple things.
Okay, well, let's first, what do you guys think about that? I don't want to steamroll that one.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Chair Lewis. I think each point that you made is excellent, and I would stand by that.
Okay,
I agree
others?
as well. I agree as well.
Yeah. Commissioner Burton, I agree. Yeah, the height ought to be 35, no greater than the 35. It ought to blend in. I don't think the Mountain Modern blends in there at all. And I have a question about the little notches for parking. Is there anything in the existing that requires any on-street parking to be in those notches?
I'm sure that was just an original, density requirement of you need 1.75 spaces per unit, and that's how it laid out. Now it's owned by the HOA.
So the HOA, they can decide we're going to change and we're not going to have on-street parking for safety issue or something, right?
No, that's shown on the approved site plans, so they have to meet those requirements unless that's changed by the planning commission. They just can't come in and modify those type of things. There's also a trail that's required with this development. They have to put that in. That was part of their open space requirements. And so there are certain things that was required as part of the approved plan, and that would be considered one of those.
Okay, so I just don't understand. How do we get to no on-street parking by anybody? Is that,
well, the private roads you can't, but in those pull-out areas, you could have parking in those areas.
okay.
So the I think the parking question is related to short-term rentals. You can restrict no parking in the private rights of way if it's for the short-term rentals. If someone's living there and they don't have a short-term rental, I don't think the planning commission would have that in their purview.
Okay, with the HOA?
Yes.
Okay. And has there been any contact made with the fire marshal to see what his restrictions are on street parking here by anybody?
Yeah, so the fire marshal has approved this project on the county's review system called Frontier. And his specific review says, no issues, no fee.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I would suggest we vote on this, and I have a feeling it will be voted down, and then we can reword the motion. Might be cleaner that way. So let's go ahead and take a vote on this one. All those in favor of the current motion, say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Okay, motion does not carry. Would anybody like to make a new motion?
Well, okay, I guess I'll make a motion. Let me pull up my,
Commissioner Francis, can I say something to you real quick?
yes,
I did like the idea of asking for signage.
okay.
Okay, what signage?
Commissioner Waldrop mentioned including signage, the no parking signs.
All right, I would
I
make
mean,
a
if we
motion.
do, if there are rentals, ask for signs, or if we don't allow rentals, still ask for signs.
Well, if it truly is a safety issue, which I believe it is, then maybe for both, but certainly if rentals are allowed.
Okay, so if her motion is for rentals to be allowed, do signage. If her motion says no rentals allowed because of safety, do you still think we should put signs up or require them to put signs up? Because nothing's changing now.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I think that's
Might be a little bit
something we can.
It's a little bit onerous to suddenly say you need to put signs up and there's nothing changing about the parking if you don't do the rentals.
Yes, I agree.
Still a good recommendation. And that's all we're doing is recommending.
John Howell, can we put, if you don't have parking for 4 cars, 2 in the driveway and 2 in the garage, they can't have a short-term rental at that location?
You could, Jack. The problem is, what if somebody shows up with a boat? And they don't listen to your signs.
A boat, an RV, snowmobile trailer.
Yeah, I can think of a couple buses at Wolf Star right now that would not fit. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Well, Commissioner Francis was making a motion. I don't think she made one yet.
I'd like to make a motion on application CUP 2021-06, requesting approval of conditional use permit amendment to amend the house types for single family lots within the village at Wolf Creek development. And also to allow short-term rentals. And I would make a motion to deny on both counts. I would, well, okay, I would move to allow changes in architecture, but not all white. They would have to maintain the current earth tone and mountain style. And as far as short-term rentals go, I still believe that there is a safety issue on allowing short-term rentals. To reiterate what Chair Lewis said, that the development was not initially meant for it. And I think it's a safety and health, life safety and health issue to allow short-term rentals in the village at Wolf Creek. So I would move to deny the application for short-term rentals.
Okay, well, let's discuss for a second. So
And
we're either just denying it and then it's completely all out the door, or we're approving it, but we're making conditions. So which did you,
okay, I would deny it outright. That's true. I would deny it outright.
okay, so you're saying let's deny everything, including letting them do mountain rustic and craftsman style homes.
Well, and I see on the application request, it says for single family lots. Can I, is this a legal question? Well, do I have to wait?
No, go
Is it
ahead.
okay to do the style? Could we do part of it, but not the height? And I still would like, well, I would say I would deny it outright. I move that we deny it outright, the application.
Okay, do I have a second?
Conditional use permit.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, I don't have a second, so motion dies. My suggestion to the group would be to approve it, subject to you can't go over 35 feet. You have to use earth tones and not white. You can allow mountain rustic and craftsman, but not mountain modern. And we deny the short term. That would be my suggestion for a motion.
Just a comment to reiterate what has been said before about the short-term rentals. They are a conditional permitted use in that zone. And so if you are going to deny that, it has to be based on a finding that, I'm going to read from the ordinance here, the reasonably, and this is some probably more complex wording than would be normally stated, but the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of a proposed conditional use cannot be substantially mitigated by the proposal or the imposition of reasonable conditions to achieve compliance with applicable standards. So if you deny short-term rentals as a use in a zone where they are a conditionally permitted use, you need to have findings that basically say, we are unable to impose conditions that substantially mitigate the detrimental effects. So make sure that you put some findings in there that are going to hold up if it gets challenged, which do need to be based on credible evidence that it cannot be substantially mitigated.
Okay, and again, my rationale of why it can't be substantially mitigated is because it's too thin of a road. And I don't, unless somebody can tell me how we can mitigate that detrimental width. Maybe there is a way, but I haven't heard anybody come up with a solution on how to get around a really thin road if somebody goes and parks something or starts to park on the road like most rentals we see.
I'll take a crack at a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve CUP 2021-06. Approval of conditional use permit amendment to amend the house types for single family lots within the village of Wolf Creek development as proposed in the staff report and per staff recommendations with the following exceptions. The average building height cannot exceed 35 feet. The proposed house plans or proposed house types are approved with the exception of mountain modern. That the colors used in the in the CUP area do not allow for white exterior coloring. And that we do not approve this CUP for nightly rentals because of our finding that because of the narrow street configuration of this subdivision, that any on-street parking, which is likely with nightly rentals and almost guaranteed with nightly rentals, would be impossible to mitigate sufficient so that we could ensure that there is adequate travel lanes for emergency vehicles through the subdivision to access all homes within the subdivision. This motion is also based on the other findings as outlined in the staff report.
Steve, could I ask a friendly amendment to add earth tones to the comment about white color?
Sure, and as a just because I misspoke a little bit, let me just make sure we got that in the motion, that the color palette for the CUP is limited to earth tones, specifically excluding white.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. That's a tough one. You know, we don't like saying no to anybody, but I really think in this case it had some mitigating issues that we owe the neighborhood to stick to, mainly looks and height and safety. So well done.
Chair
Okay.
Lewis, I have one quick comment for
Yes.
staff.
Uh-huh.
So somebody else just reminded me of something. Another thing for the staff to think about when you're looking at developments like this is that garage, and I do the same thing. The owners of the house, when they buy it, they'll say, this is my vacation house, but I'm going to rent it out, pay for it. But they put all their stuff in the garage, and then they'll lock the garage and not allow the renters in the garage. So just FYI.
Yeah, and I would think, you know, if there were some kind of condition that said that you had to park in the garage, that the owners would make sure that there isn't things in the garage. But I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and for the record, I would vote for nightly rentals here if you didn't have a minimal street to have to deal with. I think that's what threw me off. So, okay, next topic is 2.2 CUP 2021-3 and also 2.3 CUP 2021-1. Both of them are approval for conditional use permits for short-term rentals within the existing dwelling located at 371 Lakeview, number 76, and 3563 Creekside Way. I think both of those are in the townhomes, which is adjacent to this, but not single family. Is that correct, Tammy?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. You can take them separately if you'd like, but they're kind of the same thing. So either way, why don't you bring us up to speed on these?
Sure. Let me orient you a little bit. This is, as you can see, immediately adjacent to the previous item on the agenda. The request is from, I'll go through the first request. The second one is pretty identical, obviously, but a different applicant, different owner. Let me pull up something here. Hold on. Okay. This is Mr. Stevens. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental. This is the unit for this particular request. And I just wanted to, I know that parking has been an issue. And I've confirmed with applicants on both of these applications, actually, that their garages will be available for parking for any overnight guests. So they have confirmed that to me. The request is to be able to use their second home as a nightly rental when, or excuse me, as a short-term rental when they are not occupying the unit. So I'm not sure what else to share with you other than I will draw your attention to the staff report for this, which requires two conditions for approval in addition to meeting all review agency requirements. And that is that a business license shall be obtained prior to issuance of this conditional use permit, and that parking shall only occur within the areas designated in this development. So I kind of feel like Steve has probably exhausted a bit of their, you know, you guys have talked extensively about the parking. So do you have any questions for me?
Tammy, I have a question. When I go up there, I thought all the garages were single car garages. I'm confused.
There are a few that are single car garages. This first application has a 2-car garage. The second application has a single car garage over here. But there are a few that have 2-car garages.
Okay.
Well, Tammy,
Yes,
so one of these has a single car garage. Is that a smaller unit? Like a
Uh,
1 bedroom?
it is a smaller unit. This one here is a little bit smaller than this unit here.
Okay, but how many bedrooms are in each?
Let me just, I'm going to pull this up. I believe they both have 4 bedrooms, but I think the square footage is a little bit smaller in the 1-car garage. And let me just double check to see if we have, I know we've got at least one of our applicants on the line. They can probably tell you a little bit more information as far as the square footage of their particular unit. Mr. Stevens? Yes.
Yes, this is Collin Stevens. I own the larger of the 2 units. It's technically a 3-bedroom with the basement being the non ground floor bedroom. And then it is about 1,770 square feet. And it does have the 2-car garage. I do own a vehicle, but when I'm not there, it's kept in a storage unit by Salt Lake City Airport.
May I ask a question? Chair, Ruth, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that a basement? Is it completed? Has it been built out?
Yes, they are fully finished basements, and there's a bathroom, and it is basically, it is a bedroom, but for like appraisal and assessment purposes, they don't count the basement dwelling rooms.
But it can be used.
Correct.
So is it 2 bedrooms plus the basement?
No, there's 3 on the top floor plus the basement.
Okay.
And then the fire marshal has this unit capped at, I believe, 8 occupants. Or maybe it's 10. Let me pull up his comments.
How much space is in front of your condo there, in the front of it?
So I do not have a driveway that you could park on it, if that's the question.
Yes, it is. Okay, thank you.
The fire marshal has indicated a maximum of 10 occupants in this unit.
So where would the people park? The rental people park, assuming there would be more than 1 car with 4 bedrooms.
So my unit has the 2-car garage, and then the screen share is showing the additional first come, first serve parking spaces within the development.
So Tammy, how many excess parking spaces are there?
There are, it appears to be up to about 18 spaces. I'm not entirely sure if these are all designated parking spaces. I'm not sure if this is a trailer. So I've got 4 or 5 spaces here, but it looks like a total of 18 guest parking spots.
For how many bedrooms or how many units?
Total throughout the development, or just?
Yeah, that would be used, that would have access to those 18 guest parking spaces.
These 18 guest parking spaces would be in addition to whatever garage parking is supplied on site. Go ahead, Mr. Burton. Did I understand your question correctly?
I just wonder how many total units are in here. If they were all short-term rentals, how many units are there that are going to share 18 spaces for parking that could not be accommodated within their garages?
I can get you that number. Bear with me here real quick.
There's 27 units in the complex. This is Christian Mannion, the owner of the other unit, 3563 North Creekside.
Okay, so 27 units total.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Tammy, do these units right here, where the 4 spaces are here, this over here, do they, are those parking spots in front of their garages, or what is that?
These here?
No, down where the 4, yeah, next to that, right? You see these white.
These are driveways and garages here.
Oh, they can park in front of their garage.
In these particular cases, with this first application though, the unit is here. And so the access through the garage is over here on the west side.
Tammy, if it snows 2 or 3 feet, what do they do with the snow? And the parking is used up by the cars. How do you remove snow?
That's a good question. On the original plat, there is a snow storage area, I believe, along here. That's a good question. I'm not sure if the HOA clears an area to make sure that this parking is available. I would think that they would, but I couldn't tell you.
Like, how would you get it out of these areas at the back here?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's an issue. I'm not sure if it is an issue, how that is kept clear, or if it's kept clear.
Yeah. Well, to me, it comes down again to safety. I don't see how you can have short-term rentals in an area that has so small of a access. It is really tiny in there. If you add snow or a boat or anything, you're cooked. I don't see it myself, but that's just my opinion.
And Chair Lewis, this is Commissioner Lackey. And remember, if we have a boat, we have a truck. So we're taking up 2 spots, assuming they're going to park the boat in one slot and then park the truck in another one.
And that's if, someone who lives there isn't already parked there. I just don't
believe boat or RV storage is permitted on the property. Let me pull up the CCRs. And snow removal was not an issue that I saw this winter.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's this winter.
Mild winter.
Global warming, it could be the norm.
Well, commissioners, what else? Any other comments?
I just got a question that may be germane. And that would, if this were a motel with this many bedrooms, what kind of parking would be required? That's kind of what it becomes if they're all cars. They're
1.75 per unit. Code wise.
Pardon?
I think we're at 1.75 car spaces per unit.
For a motel?
No, just for condos or townhomes.
Yeah, but I just wonder, staff, any idea what it requires for a motel?
For a hotel, it's 1 space per 2 sleeping units in our code.
So the CC&Rs restrict trucks over 3/4 ton, trailers, campers, and boats for storage in garages only.
Can you repeat that?
Any motor vehicles with a manufacturer rating exceeding 3/4 ton, as well as recreational vehicles, mobile homes, travel trailers, tent trailers, camper shells, detached campers, boats, boat trailers, commercial vehicles, or other similar equipment or vehicle must be parked and maintained in garages only.
How big are these garages? Can they accommodate boat trailers and campers?
I mean, for purposes of this discussion, I think if your boat doesn't fit, you go rent storage. I mean, it clearly states that you can't park it anywhere outside of a garage.
Commissioner Burton, this is Commissioner Lackey. I have a towboat, and those are the most popular boats for people to go to Pineview on and vacation with, and they take up a lot of space and they're very tall.
Yes.
Well, these are 90-degree garage doors too. How do you get a boat or anything into those garages with that kind of a turn? Good luck parking it.
Very skillful.
I could do it, John.
Steve could, and Ron could actually, but not John. Yeah.
In this picture, it shows people parked right here, here, over here, somebody here.
That's an aerial image during development. So you do have construction trailers, construction equipment. I mean, all sorts of things that are not allowed during the normal course of living. And I mean, if you review the CC&Rs that are associated with development, it's just not carte blanche, do whatever you want. And there's an active HOA management company regularly communicating and enforcing these rules.
Staff did a site visit to this a while back, and the only vehicles that seemed to be parked within these private roads had to do with construction of these units.
Do we know how many 2-bedroom or 2 garages versus single car garages there are?
That information readily available.
Okay.
I think simply because of how long ago the original approval was granted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to, is there a safety issue here? Getting fire trucks or emergency vehicles back in here in the winter. If there is, then that's a serious concern.
Yeah.
And it certainly appears very tight here.
Well, I feel bound to speak up here again to say, can you impose conditions that would mitigate that issue? Is requiring them to park in the garage and to comply with the CC&Rs regarding all kinds of other parking, is that a reasonable condition that you can impose that mitigates those concerns? I mean, the concerns are real, absolutely. But can you impose reasonable conditions that would substantially mitigate those concerns? That is a crucial question here, just like it was on the last application.
The problem, Portland, is that we all know rentals, and there are going to be 2 or 3 cars in each one of these that are going to show up with people who are going to come to vacation. And you can make rules, but they're not going to listen to them. And it's going to become a safety issue on a snowy day. It's going to be just a cluster over there. And then what? Then where are we? And if these had been normal size roads and designed for guest parking and all that kind of stuff, and 2 spaces per unit and all that kind of stuff, plus garages, that'd be a different scenario. Or if this was designed for snow, it's not designed for snow, it's a disaster for snow, then it wouldn't be a safety issue. But to me, it's a complete cluster and a safety issue. So that's my logic behind it.
Can I ask a question? I think more for Cortland, our attorney. Can assumption or can decisions and conditions be made based on the assumption that the law will be broken at some point? And maybe they should. Go ahead.
Okay, the standard for that again is you have to have credible evidence to support the conditions that are imposed. And that's in the ordinance. That is the standard that is used in this type of situation. What is the credible evidence that we have that the condition is appropriate and or that there are no reasonable conditions that can be imposed? And so, you're the ones who have to make that determination ultimately. Is there credible evidence to determine that the law will be broken in that way, or that the conditions of the CCNRs will be broken in that way? And then, that's going to have to be defended if it gets challenged.
Well, I would say the 5 cars that park in front of my house when that corner house is illegally rented is, I guess, my credible evidence. We very rarely get a renter in that house that doesn't have multiple cars, and multiple cars won't fit here. So that's just my experience.
I think most of us living up here, especially those over here in Eden, can attest to what the average is with short-term rentals, how many vehicles there usually are. So, it's not only John's word, but I think it's many of know usually what the traffic entails when you have short-term rentals.
Let me do this just briefly. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. Is there anybody from the community who would like to speak to this? Tammy, you can kind of moderate if you'd like, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes if there is anybody.
It looks like Ray Bertoldi's raising his hand.
Miranda as well.
Tammy, can you go ahead and moderate?
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Bertoldi.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. I've got a couple of comments here, and a lot of this I know you guys have discussed already. What I would, some observations from my experience, seeing as I drive that very road that goes along this development every single day since I moved my office to Eden. I have seen, and now I know there's a limited number of occupants in here now. I don't know how many of these buildings have obtained occupancy, but as I see it starting to gain steam, I'm seeing more and more things happen. One of the things I noticed this past weekend is over on that, on the image you have up right now, that first driveway on the left, which would be, let's see, that'd be the west side. There was a number of cars parked parallel on that road, perpendicular to their garages. and just sitting there. I'm like, wow, how did somebody get out of their garage when you've got somebody parked out there? So there's obviously somebody can't get into a garage or something like that. That's just a small sample. Now, when this thing gets 100% occupancy, what is going to happen in that development, especially when you start bringing, rentals into the mix? And how many of these people are actually going to be, let the people use their garage, to do that? I don't know if these extra spaces, which are perpendicular parking along Wolf Lodge Lane, are they dedicated to the existing units, or are these overflow parking spaces, or what? I don't know if they're not for units that aren't rented or so forth. It seems to me that it sounds like we have 27 units there. We have 18 extra spaces. If this thing goes to full rental or even half rental, it seems like to me it's going to be a mess. The other question is regarding snow. I've been waiting for this to see how this plays out when this thing gets occupied. And we have not had a big winter, as we all know. But where is all this snow going? I'll tell you where it's going. It's going out on Wolf Lodge Lane. They're pushing snow out onto that road. And you can go over there and see where the plows have pushed the grass up and so forth. That's where the snow's going. There's nowhere, otherwise it's going to be an issue like if you go to Sun Valley, where they're actually loading snow up with a front loader into a dump truck and hauling it off. I have no idea where the snow storage is on here, but what's being used currently is back out on that road. The issue of trailers and parking on Wolf Lane Drive, it's been happening for years. There have been snowmobile trailers, boats, you name it, parked right in front along this whole road, all the way up until it hits the main road coming out onto the highway. And that's just probably from Wolf Lodge. It has nothing to do with this development. So that's not going to get any better. It's already a narrow road. I mean, I feel like I might as well go all the way down Willowbrook Lane, and then turn left and go onto the highway, because this is a disaster. Just this morning driving, I had to pull clear over into where these perpendicular parking places are to avoid being, in a front end accident.
Try to keep it to 2 minutes, Ray.
Okay, I'll hurry up. Cars in front of the snow alley pushing around. I'm just looking at my notes here. And the thing is the vehicles that are there right now are not just the construction vehicles. There are people living there right now. And there's, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's already having an impact of what's going on the roads in the neighborhood there. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Can I take just a moment?
Okay, Tammy, are you moderating?
I am. I apologize because I'm not hosting. I can't see who's got a hand raised.
Oh, okay, I just raised my
I
hand.
apologize, Mr. Bingham.
Okay. I think right now there's only very few of these units that have been sold. And already we have 2 applicants for short-term rentals. I say we have to look at the possibility of not just these short-term rentals applying for overnights, but there's the possibility of another 25 people applying for short-term rental ability in these units. So I think, it can't be a first come, first served type situation. Either the development is designed for short-term rentals or it's not. And because of the parking and other issues, I don't think that the short-term rental makes sense in this particular area. There are other reasons that may be addressed if the the county passes new short-term rental laws that address other issues besides parking, such as occupancy, such as who does the enforcement, whether it's an on-site property manager or someone else that enforces short-term rentals, that these are unknowns. You know, I really think that these should be denied at this point, at least until the county comes up with some guidance on short-term rentals that could possibly address some of these issues more specifically.
Okay, thank you. Miranda?
Thank you, Chair. Miranda Menzies, 3807 North Elk Ridge Trail. I agree with comments by Mr. Bertoldi. I've driven down this road a few times and literally had to back up because I could not get down there. This was during construction, but the parking along there and the condition of the road is simply appalling. I should note that the staff report, I believe, may have an error in it. There's a comment that there is ample guest parking along Wolf Creek Drive. Wolf Creek Drive is SR 158. And if you think people are going to start parking along the state route, I think UDOT's going to have something to say about that. The guest parking, I think, should be indicated by clear signage and possibly even the striping that says guests only or some such. And my main concern is over the short-term rental of whether it's possible to say, for example, that as Mr. Bingham pointed out, that maybe you can, or I don't know whether you can or you can't say, we will approve these two, but at that point, we have no other capacity for parking sufficient for short-term rental. So are you, by approving these, making it a precedent where you have to approve all the others? Or is it possible to say that in this unit of 25, this development of 25 or 27 units, that it is only reasonable to have 2 businesses at one time for short-term rental? In which case you can then say, and it shall comply with all of the ordinances relative to short-term rental as will be passed by the county commission within a 1-year period. Because we know that that ordinance is coming. Can we make that ordinance retroactively applicable to these short-term rental units? Or are they grandfathered without licenses is my question. So I think you could get away with approving these 2, but if you have then made it a precedent, then we're going to be in a mess. So that would just be my thought.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the community? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you all for your comments. Again, I think this comes down to a safety issue because of the thinness of the roads and the snow, and the design was just done long before short-term rentals was ever conceived. So I don't know of a way to mitigate the situation. And I certainly don't think if you give it to 2, you're going to have to give it to all 24 or whatever there is. So you have to look at it in terms of worst case.
Chair Lewis, may I make another comment? I just wanted everyone to remember too, that when we approved this, we approved a condition that they had less, that we approve it with less parking that is normally even recommended. So just as a reminder, there's actually less parking in this development than is usually allowed in other similar developments.
So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the first of the 2 on CUP 2021-3, first of all.
I'll make a motion, but I'd like to make a comment first.
Okay.
I think it was you, Chair, that mentioned the horse out of the barn. It seems to me, although the zoning allows as a conditional use STRs, when the developers chose to have these very small streets, very narrow parking and limited parking, the houses out of, or horses out of the barn. They chose not to have the ability to do short-term rentals. That was a choice they made. They may not have thought of it at that time, but it just seems, how do you mitigate a disaster by half allowing it? So my motion is with regard to, don't have the numbers here. I think it's 2021-01 and 0. Are we on just one of these?
Yeah, 01, well, 01 and 03, either way, or both.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to make a motion that would apply to both of them if that's appropriate.
I don't know. I've never done that. What do you think, Cortland? Can we do that?
I think if you make it clear in your statement, in your motion, that it applies equally and separately to each one of them, that should be okay.
Okay.
Okay, this motion will apply to 2021-01 and 03 equally and separately because they're both in the same situation here. After listening to discussion, I think my motion is supported by a finding that the layout of this development is just not conducive to inviting the increased vehicle use that will come from short-term rentals in this area. It seems like, from what I hear, we are now maybe have less than we need just for permanent residents. And we know, well, I think the finding is that short-term rentals bring more vehicle, trailer, everything use than just normal residents have. It's also finding that I think the CCNRs really don't address the issue. It's unreasonable to believe that anyone coming to a short-term rental with a snowmobile trailer or a boat is going to go down and rent a storage unit for the 2 or 3 nights he'll be there. So that's just not going to help mitigate the problem. I think this is a safety issue. It's also based on a finding that we've had a very light winter this year. We've had a light winter for a few years, but I've been here 40 years and I've seen horrible winters where we have 4 feet of snow everywhere. And I'm worried about the safety, the life and safety of people in this development. Safety of the problem. I don't see how with packed parking in there, packed snow, that you can get fire trucks in there. So based on those findings, I've moved that we deny these 2 applications for short-term rentals in this development.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it. John Howell.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Again, a difficult decision, but I think we owe it to the safety. Okay, lastly, we have 2.4 UVH 021621, consideration action on a request for preliminary approval of the Vista View subdivision, which has 4 lots. Felix, do you want to go ahead and present?
Okay, yes, thank you. So here's the standard subdivision. Let me go to the first. So I'll probably just start with an aerial and show kind of the aerial view. You can see that 21 acre piece on the southeast corner of this block. That's where your 4 lot development will be. This is AV3 zoning, and you've got 500 South Street and 8600 East Street, which are fully developed and improved roads. And here's the plan that we were looking at and reviewed for. Again, this is a preliminary subdivision approval request. And so that's what he's looking for today. You can see on this plan, they're proposing some area to be dedicated to 500 South Street. And you also have that area dedicated along 8600 East. So this is necessary or along properties that describe out into the right of way. So it's a chance for the county to kind of secure this area for the public right of way. Let me go to my staff report. Let's see. Right, so here's my staff report, and a focus that I'd like to bring your attention to, commissioners, is the portion about that describes block lengths. And so when they're at this preliminary phase of design, the planning division saw an opportunity for the creation of a street. And so this is the plan that they've suggested, and you see that area in green. And that's actually on the north of the property. So planning division is looking at requiring a future right-of-way easement to be placed at that location. And also that the developer enter into an agreement that at a future date when neighboring lands are ready to develop, and then they would pay a proportionate cost just for that 33-foot area that's marked in green. And yeah, so they've provided their feasibility letters for all 4 lots for your standard septic systems, and they do have a well driller's report for 1 lot, which is what's required at this phase. You'll notice, in order to as a way to let the lot buyers know that they'll need to drill their wells, you can see those conditions of approval. And so staff recommends approval with those conditions. And it mentions there in item number 2 that the owner record a covenant to advise the new lot owners the well permits must be obtained. And so, and item number 3, it may need to be altered just a slight bit, because it does mention deferral agreements along 8600 East and 500 South. The deferral agreement along that area that for dedication on the north side, we would just be looking at that that equitable servitude agreement, which basically at a time which the county deems it necessary, they will pay a proportionate cost. And so with that, that kind of concludes my presentation. And I know that we do have the applicant with us today on this Zoom meeting, and he would like to also make some comments.
Thank you, Felix. Why don't we go ahead and hear from the applicant?
Yeah, so this is Jeremy Draper. I'm with Reeve & Associates. And we also have Dean on this as well. He's the applicant. We want to just review that and a couple things from Felix's presentation. One of the comments that Felix had was about the block length and the need for the that future roadway that's located on the north side of the property. As we look at this and the feasibility of having that east-west roadway there, if you were to continue that roadway to the east, there's existing cul-de-sac that would run into within the first few hundred feet there. So really the feasibility of that road going further east isn't too good. As far as it goes further to the west, there's some property ownership issues a little bit there. And also that lot to the north of us is also, it's part of a subdivision already. And so gaining that other 33 feet for that is something that we feel would be difficult to obtain. With the deferral agreements on 8600, we are providing the dedication for that. We understand, there's a potential for roadway expansion on that. One of the things we'd like Planning Commission to consider would be on 500 South. If we can, we still need to dedicate that because our legal description for the property does go into the roadway. We understand the need to secure that right away, but our properties, we would prefer to have access only from 8600 East. And so the properties would not have access to 500 South. So it would be our preference to not enter into a deferral agreement on 500 South at this time. So any of these agreements that we need to work on, we're happy to work on with staff as we go through the final approval for the subdivision. But we wanted to bring up some of these concerns to the Planning Commission at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and bring it back to commissioners. I've looked this over and I think it makes a lot of sense, but I would recommend we stick with the deferral agreement on 500 South to help the county eventually flesh that out into a good road. Other comments from commissioners?
I have a question. Is the plan to try to get hooked up to Huntsville city water for the residential water?
The plan at this time is for each lot to have a separate well, to have their own well.
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Lackey. You cut out. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, not a problem. So the plan right now is for each lot to have its own well.
And you've already proved water on one, so you're good for the rest.
Correct.
With a recorded notice on each lot. So that's how that works.
So Commissioner Lackey again. Sorry, Jeremy, I'm kind of the water guy. When I look at this drilling report, the color of the water is brown and gray and brown from the top to 75 feet down. Huntsville city water's got to be close to you, isn't it?
That's something I would have to verify. I'm not familiar where the nearest connection point would be. I think it is something that we can definitely take a look at as we go through final improvement plans with this project.
Thank you.
Go.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Burton. I've got a question on this deferral agreement. I mean, these are huge lots. These are 4, 4, 7, and I can't see the other one, but they're 21 acres for 4 lots.
Correct.
And the frontage along 500 South is, if I can read it right, 659 feet. If I've got that right. That's a lot of frontage, a lot of expense to put on this lot when this lot is not using that street. He's not doing anything on that street. We've got 4 families here, and this one lot has got to pay for 659 feet of curb, gutter, sidewalk, asphalt. I'm not sure all that's included in that. I think that's kind of an onerous burden. And certainly there's a lot of concern. We don't want the county to have to pay for anything. Let's make the developers pay. But the developers are really these homeowners. We're increasing the costs of these people putting up 4 homes here to put up 650 feet of, I don't know what the cost of curb, gutter, sidewalk, asphalt is to make this a bigger street so that people can drive further east to access other places. So it seems like here the county's got an obligation to take care of all the homes that are already up there. These people are only adding four more homes on a street that's got, I don't know how many homes, 50, 100 homes up there that use this street already. So I think it's kind of unfair to put that burden on one of these lots or even 4 of the lots, but it looks like it's on one of the lots. As I think Mr. Draper brings up some good points about having a street on the north side here going east and west. As I think of this neighborhood, I don't think there are any streets that go north and south mid-block between 100 South and 500 South. I may be wrong, but this would be the first one. Seems all the traffic is either going north and south and accessing off those north-south roads. So, although having, well, and if you go to the west here, there's another point. It gets really wet down there. I don't see a road maybe going all the way through. I don't know. But as a general principle, having shorter blocks and some roads access in here makes sense. But in this particular space, he makes a good point. You go east, you run into a cul-de-sac. How are you going to get the rest of the road from a subdivision that's already built out on the north? Probably not going to happen. So I don't know what's to be gained by requiring the developer to give up that roadway on the north. Just some comments.
Felix, do you want to maybe answer that? What is to be gained by that?
Yeah, I think it's just part of what's written into the subdivision code, and that's part of the reason why we look at the subdivision code. We look at applicable standards in that code, and we try to apply them in, for good planning practices, planning for the creation of blocks in the future, for future development that could very well take place. And if you look at this land, it's pretty wide open at this point. And so it's sometimes it's difficult to project out into the future, but I think that's part of the reason why we have those provisions in the code. It just helps to kind of guide and to kind of help shape the creation of blocks.
Well, I think you develop too, and that's kind of part of the game. Is you gotta build the rest of the city as you go. So
now that makes sense with smaller lots. Here we've got 3-acre minimum lots, and in this subdivision we've got 4 to 7 acres. The size of these lots. Those are huge lots. Huge lots.
And presumably they'll sell them for more.
So they don't need the traffic to service. They don't need the roads to service them because it's limited how much. I mean, you're going to have 4 families living on this 21 acres. So it is, I believe, a little bit different than a subdivision in a town where you've got 1/4-acre lots or even 1-acre lots. These are huge ranchette kind of things. I mean, they're huge. 7 acres is pretty big.
But we have lots of subdivisions with 5-acre lots in them, like Falcon Crest, for instance, that, they didn't try to get the county to pay for their roads.
Well, and they're paying for the road to service these 4 lots. It's 7,800 east. I think isn't that what you told me? 7,800, I can't see it, 8,600 east.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying for the access to these lots. They're adding a burden on 500 south of 4 houses, but a huge burden to have to sign a deferral agreement to pay for all the improvements sometime in the future to service not these 4 lots, but lots to the east. And I think that's just smacks of unfairness.
Okay, duly noted. Any other comments?
This is Commissioner Hoag. Question on irrigation water. Is the expectation, at least what I gather from this application, is that the expectation for both culinary water and irrigation water would be from wells. If that's the case, it looks like, at least this ground looks like it's been irrigated before. Is there no other irrigation stock on that property?
I'm not aware of any additional irrigation on that property, so the plan right now is to have the secondary water for each of the lots to come off of those wells. We will verify that as we go through our final civil improvement drawings.
Can they see me? Excuse me, can you hear me? This is Dean Jensen. I'm the owner of the property.
Sure, go ahead, Dean.
We have 20 shares of irrigation for that 21 acres. And so our intent on that is to continue with the hay crop that is on there around each of the homes. That's going to be a family development. It's for my wife and I, which we have a home started on there. That's why the initial well has been drilled. And we're subdividing because I have a son who would like to build to the north of us. So the other 2 lots that would be on the south would also be for children in the event that at some future time they would like to come up there. So to Commissioner Burton's point, all of that deferral cost would reside with me, probably. We don't intend to sell to anybody else. If nobody else comes up there, our intent is to keep the farm going with alfalfa and different things. So, but there is irrigation water that we own 20 shares with that property that would probably be divided among the 4 lots as we continue with this family development.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'm the neighbor to the north, actually, if I can make a comment or question.
Okay, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Nicole Paulman, and I'm the I'm the neighbor to the north. My really only concern about this is the proposed roadway as part of the plan. And if that's up for discussion as part of this, I don't necessarily understand where that road would go to. I do understand that it's an obvious place for a road to go for future development. But right now it kind of goes out to the middle of the field. Like one of the commissioners said, these are all large lots. Is my understanding they're meant to be at least 3 or 4 acre lots to approve development at this time, as I understand it. And as far as traffic goes out here, it's rural. There's definitely not need right now for a road there. A road to nowhere, I guess, as I'm looking at it right now. And so I'm just wondering if the developer can comment more on that, or what the status of approving this plan is as far as that road is concerned. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment. I know the county is interested in continuing roads so that they have connectivity later. That's the only purpose for that. Okay, so I will entertain a motion.
John Howell, I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I move to approve petition UVH 021621. Request for preliminary approval of Vista View subdivision consisting of 4 lots located at 403 South, 8600 East, Huntsville, 21.1 acres, AB3 Agricultural Valley, subject to all conditions and all recommendations listed in the staff report and to all state and county agencies' requirements. This motion is based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, further comment? I think the current proposal includes the deferment or doesn't include the deferment.
Yes, it includes the deferral agreement.
Okay, so at this point, the recommendation is for staff recommendation, including the deferment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comment?
Yeah, this Commissioner Burton.
Uh-huh.
I still have a problem being somewhat familiar with the land up there of the need for a road here. I just have a problem with it because as you go further to the west, you get into, well, if you go very far, you get over into water problems. You've got a cul-de-sac, one field over there, a home with a circular driveway, a large home there. It's not going to service that lot. That lot's coming off First Street, 100 South. I don't think it's proper, and especially when you can't get the other half of the road. So we've got a 33-foot something that goes out there forever that is, I suppose it's dedicated. It's owned by the county. Who's going to maintain the weeds, and it's just never going to service anything. I don't think it's appropriate in this location.
Felix, is it dedicated or like, is it handed over?
You mean the portion on 8600 East and 500 South, or the portion on the north?
On the north that Commissioner Burton's talking about.
Yeah, it wouldn't be dedicated until they record the plat. But it's important also to make the distinction that with that dedication on the north, it would be just dedicating an easement for future right-of-way. So they wouldn't be dedicating area, but it would preserve an easement for in case we need that area.
Okay, so it's still their land and they're taking care of it, but there's an easement on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that easement encroach onto my property as well at the?
I'm sorry, the public comment is closed, but no, it doesn't. Okay, any other comments?
This is Cortland. The motion, as I heard it, referred to what is written in the staff report, which does not, at least in condition number 3, does not say what Felix just said. Felix brought that up earlier, talking about a correction being needed, but I believe the motion that was stated is to leave number 3 and the others as they are written. So if there should be an easement dedicated, that probably needs to be explicitly stated as part of the motion.
Okay, so there is a deferment currently, but there is no easement on the north written in.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so if you're going to want to add that, we'll have to vote this down and or friendly amend it if you wanted to add it. So John, do you want to friendlyly add that?
To what the discussion was, the easement that the council has said, just add that.
Okay, so your motion now includes adding the easement recommended by Felix on the north.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, any other discussion?
How wide is that easement?
Felix?
Oh, your question is why is that easement?
How wide?
Oh, how wide? 33 feet.
So half a right of way. And that's just an easement in case it ever happens, which it may never. Somebody's got a margarita there. Who has got the margarita going? CE.
You got a flat tire.
All right.
Okay, so one further question on this deferral agreement. This deferral agreement goes in perpetuity. 50 years from now, you've got to pay for curb, gutter, sidewalk, and asphalt on 500 South and on the North Street.
That's correct.
Okay, you've heard the motion stated. All those in favor? Say
Can we
aye.
get a second on the amendment to the motion?
Okay, is there a second on the amendment to the motion?
This is Shanna.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as stated as well as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call count on this, by the way. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A roll call is in your name. So I hear John,
Shanna,
Ron,
John Howell.
okay. I would vote for this, but it won't matter now. All those opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
And I vote nay because I'm concerned with this perpetual deferral agreement being onerous, and in my view, it's improper because it goes beyond the impact that these 4 lots are going to have on 500 South Street.
Okay, motion carries.
Per, could you, just for the record's sake, please say who voted for it and who voted against it? Just summarize that, please.
Here, I heard Commissioner Howell voted for it. Commissioner Waldrop voted for it. Commissioner Lewis voted for it. Commissioner Lackey voted for it. Commissioner Burton did not vote for it or voted against it. And I think Commissioner Hoag voted against it. Is that correct?
Against, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 2-4.
And what about you, Commissioner Lewis? Chair Lewis?
I voted for it. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and move to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any in the audience that would like to speak? Okay, any additional comments from the commissioners?
Only that you're doing a good job, John.
Well, I tell you, this is difficult, and I really respect Commissioner Burton's comments about the onerousness of some of these things. I think it's good that we have different opinions, and I think others out there appreciate your viewpoint as well. So thank you for sharing it and continue to do so, please. Do we have any comments from the planning director?
Just a couple. As far as public comment goes, there was a couple here in the auditorium when you accepted the one person's comment for the subdivision. They were wanting to make a comment as well. But I know that public comment is not required. But it was just more, I just want that on the record. He'd indicated that he had some of the same concerns that were already brought up as part of the one, like the neighbor that's to the north. So I just wanted that on the record for that.
Yeah, I apologize. We've got to do a better job of moderating and being able to see who has their hand up and where.
Yeah, it's a hard situation, and the times we're in right now. So
yeah,
yeah.
I really do like to hear as many people who can speak to it as possible. It doesn't hurt. Never
Right.
hurt.
Right. Appreciate all you do, all of you commissioners in that. But that was just something I just wanted to put on the record for his comments.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Any additional comments from legal?
No, I don't. Thank you.
We're stressing you out tonight, I can tell. We appreciate your guidance and counsel as well. Okay, I will go ahead and adjourn. Now, do we have a work session after this?
We do. Yep.
We do.
Yeah, Charlie is online, so he'll kind of introduce it and get things going, and then the applicants here, and they'll present some of their information as well.
Okay, Charlie, take it away.
Hi guys, I apologize. I'm sitting at home, not feeling very well, so otherwise I'd be right there. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of the intro for what you're looking at. On the corner of Old Snow Basin Road and Highway 39, there is a piece of property that is currently not developed. If we were to pull up the zoning map, you would see that it is zone CVR1, Commercial Valley Recreation 1. And basically that allows for all kinds of commercial activities. It's essentially the resort zone that applies to the valley floor. And you could potentially get right around 21 units to the acre. I don't recall the exact acreage of this land, but I believe it's right around 3 acres. So you could probably get quite a bit of land in there. I'll let the developer speak a little bit more to the exactness of the facts. But you could get not quite a bit of land, quite a bit of homes in there if it were to be developed under CVR1. The applicant is asking to amend the zoning map to, it's actually going to reduce essentially the amount of units that are possible there. I would suggest that we rezone the property to the FR3 zone. What that would do is it would allow them to put residential lots in without having to do like a PRUD under the CVR requirements. And they are going to be looking for, I believe it's 13 lots in there, which is less than what was previously proposed. Right now, there's a development agreement that applies to the property for the development of a hotel that was approved before I was here at the county. I want to say it was back in 2012 or so. The applicant is not looking to do that. They would just like to put some single family homes in there on smaller lots. And they've got access to the sewer system there. In fact, they'll probably bring that sewer system to full capacity with their lots. And they've got water in that area. So with that said, I'll let the applicants kind of guide you through what their hopes and dreams are. And our goal, if you guys are comfortable with it, is to bring this back in your next decision meeting, so at the end of April, for a rezone decision.
Charlie, I appreciate the introduction. My name's Jeff Allen. I'm with CW Group. We're based out of Centerville, Utah. Commissioners, I really appreciate your time this evening. I know it's getting late, so I won't take too much of your time. Is it okay if I share my screen?
It is. It's all set up. Go ahead.
Appreciate that. I'll go quick. I'll just kind of burn through a couple introductory slides. We're CW Group. Like I said, we're based out of Centerville. We're a local developer. We've done projects throughout the whole state. I can send this material to anyone that's interested, but it just kind of explains what we've done as a developer and as a builder. You can see some of the different projects we've done, mainly around downtown Salt Lake and our vertical construction, but we've developed projects throughout the state. We also operate down in St. George. Moving to the parcel that we're discussing, like Charlie introduced, the projects on Old Snow Basin Road and Highway 39. It's just over 3 acres. Currently, the zone is CVR1. And we're looking to rezone it to FR3 and do 13 residential units. The lots will be about 9,000 square feet. We envision this as a project. We envision this project to be a second home buyer from someone potentially down here in the valley that's looking to have a vacation home up in the upper valley. This is a layout just showing the footprint of the homes. And then I have some conceptual renderings and some floor plans as well we can look through if you're interested. I'll just kind of scroll through my slides slowly, and if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those. This is the basement. There's topography on the sites. We feel like these will be daylight basements. Main floor with the master on the main. And the upstairs will be a plethora of bedrooms for guests or large families or visitors that come and stay with a resident while they vacation. That's all I have to present. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or discuss our proposed development further.
Any questions from the Planning Commission? As you guys kind of rolled around in your mind, one thing that we want to look at when we look at rezones is it in compliance with the general plan? There is a village area that is planned for that intersection. As Rick or as Director Grover and I looked at that intersection, there is some residential uses, some higher density residential uses right across the street from 3900. There is some CV zoning right across the street, which Snow Basin owns. And our thought is to probably grab both of those parcels, the applicants and Snow Basins, and rezone them to FR3 for a residential village, which seems more appropriate here. I had some concerns when we made the general plan about putting a commercial village here at this intersection, primarily because using this intersection, Old Snow Basin Road, which doesn't go through, it just goes to residential lots, that I think that could pose problematic, especially when it comes to the potential of competing with the Trappers Loop intersection, the commercial village that will be located there. So my suggestion, and Rick and I, as we look this over, I think we're both in agreement that using this as kind of a more higher density residential village area is probably more appropriate for the overall effect of the general plan than using this, looking for a gas station or something like that to locate on the corner here.
Commissioners, just so you're aware too, we visited with Snow Basin about this, and they were in favor of what the applicant's proposing at this time. They felt with the single family homes that are to the west of here, to have a hotel or some commercial in this area, it just made more sense to have residential, like Charlie said, so it's not competing with Trappers Loop commercial area because of the proximity.
So maybe the $10 million question today is there anyone who would, any planning commissioners who would feel pretty strongly against a rezone for this property?
Hey, I've got a question. Has anybody heard from the Chalet HOA on this at all? I understand Snow Basin weighed in. Has the neighborhood right there weighed in at all?
Not yet. We haven't formally let the neighbors know. And the applicant, I think, may have actually done some due diligence in talking to the neighbors. But I'm willing to bet, as we do discuss this with the neighbors, if they had a choice between a hotel or 13 residential homes, I think they'd probably go for the homes. But that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
I have a quick question. It's a little bit off subject, but just doing the newspaper the last 23 years, I've seen probably, I'm thinking of 3 semis or big commercial trucks that have lost their brakes and ended up in, actually, I think most of them end up to the right or across the street. But I mean, I know that's not anything to do with this development, but just wondering if, to me, that could be a problem if, you know, a truck tears through some of these, just for something for consideration down the road. I don't know how you would address that, but it's an issue.
Are you thinking about Trapper's Loop? Because that intersection, I've seen a truck blow through.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is the old Snow Basin Road. Yeah.
I've seen a bicycle blow through this.
It wasn't you, was it, John?
As a matter of fact.
All right, commissioners, with it. Oh, sorry. All right, Jack, were you saying something?
John, just to answer your question, we have casually reached out to some of the neighbors, not all of them. And we think the overall sentiment is that they would appreciate a development like this, you know, compared to, like explained, a CBR1 development where you'd have significantly more density.
Yeah, I'd suggest getting with Jim Bird with the HOA as soon as possible, and you know, getting them on board is always helpful.
Jim Bird?
Jim Bird, yeah, as the HOA president over there.
Appreciate that. Thank you, John.
Any other comments from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Hogue. I just had one kind of a question based on our discussion earlier tonight with the narrow roads. Is this going to be a similar situation with, you know, a private road and the potential for STRs wanting to be occurring there?
These are private streets. I think the right of way is just standard right of way. We do have 2-car garage and driveways so that you have parking for 4 vehicles off street.
Okay.
Yeah, and a little bit more to that, Commissioner Hogue. Right now, we don't have a provision in our ordinance that allows private streets. When you look at the exact layout of what they have proposed, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. Once they have the zone, we're not looking to put a development agreement together or anything like that. Once they have the zone, they're going to be able to develop it the way they see best. We are working on an ordinance, however, that will allow private streets in certain circumstances. I think there'll be relatively rare circumstances, but one of them I would recommend, if we've got small cul-de-sacs and a developer wants to make it a private street, by all means, I think that's a great idea and less infrastructure maintenance that the county has to do. And so we'll be looking at that ordinance change over the next, probably next two months or so. And that'll probably run right about the same time that this rezone will. And then once they're ready to submit a formal subdivision application, hopefully that'll be available to them at that time.
You obviously have a lot of STRs on the north side of that road, but on that side of the road, there are none. And I know the chalets are going to have a lot to say about that. So if that's in the, you know, the future, you might want to work through those issues early on.
Yep. Great comment. Well, all right, planning commissioners, if there aren't any other questions or concerns, you'll probably see this again in 2 meetings from now.
Great. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Charlie? Is that it for the work session?
That's it from me, yes.
Okay, thanks for your work. Look forward to hearing more about that project. Probably beats a hotel, but who knows? All right, thanks everybody. That concludes tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you all.